two on
No,
there?
the blue one is one.
The blue one's one, that's two.
Blue is one.
That's according to the way he
Did you get the map?
Oh.
You sent the map I gave us. Yeah. It says two on the other maps, right? The blue one, or the green, is the green one
is
two?
two.
Green is two, yeah, green one's two. The blue one to the left is one.
Does that mean that you and
Well, me and Commissioner Thielen are in the same district. Yes, so if, I mean, presuming we both file, we'd be running against each other, yes.
Which district is that then?
Two. Commissioner Mattson and Commissioner Russick are both in District 5. And there was no map that we could create. There was no option even to choose from where Commissioner Russick and Mattson were not in the same district. Every district that was possible put Russick and Mattson in the same district. Commissioner Russick has announced that he does not intend to run for election. I believe Commissioner Mattson intends to run for election, yes.
Is there residency requirements in the district?
You must
in
live in
order-
the district.
Okay.
You must live in the
So
district.
are you run against Freemake?
Well, it's my intention to run, and I guess we'll, if Commissioner Thielen runs, then I will be running against Commissioner Thielen. I don't know whether or not she intends to run or not. Then, let's see here, and Commissioner Eichelberg has indicated that he does not intend to run. I don't know that he's made a formal announcement to the paper or nothing like that, but all words I've heard from him are that he doesn't intend to run. So there will be 3 districts that will not have an incumbent commissioner, and potentially 2 districts where there will be incumbent commissioners running. So,
want to say which ones were 4 year
Two and-
terms,
okay.
which were 2-year.
That's something we have to set today as well. Districts 2, 4, and 5 will run for 4-year terms, and districts 1 and 3 will run for 2-year terms. Now, why did we choose that? Because districts 2, 4, and 5 this fall will be up for 4-year terms. District 1 and 3 will be up for 2-year terms. That was decided in the board meeting today. Now, that by majority vote, there's no system in play on how you do that. It's just by majority vote. The reason we picked that is because the sitting commissioners in 2, 4, and 5 all ran 2 years ago for what was supposed to be 4-year terms, but they got cut down to 2. So we felt in a matter of fairness that they shouldn't have to be in a district that goes for 2 again, that they just came off a 2, that they should be able to go for a 4, and then other districts that came off a 4 would go for a 2, rather than having, you know, some districts be 4, 4, and the other ones be 2. It'll be 2, 4, and then the other ones will be 4, 2. So all 5 commissioners agreed that that was fair, that the ones that came off a 2-year term would get to run for a 4-year term, and those districts that came off a 4-year term would run for a 2. So that's kind of how we resolved with the ones that got 4 and the ones that got 2. So, so that's where we're at as of today. Then I guess I'd be happy to stand for further questions about the process or speculation, Dan, on why things were.
Just a broader question of that this was prompted by the census, right?
Yes.
And so that this will stand, or these votes will stand for another 10 years?
Correct.
Until another census is
Yep.
taken?
All 87 counties must reestablish their lines every 10 years. Now, if you were in a county where there was little or no growth, potentially the lines could stay exactly the same, but the county has to go through the process and reestablish them. There'll be a census again, of course, in 2020, and then in 2022, the board will change these lines to something new.
Thank you.
Yep. So, any other questions?
How much did it change over what came from the courts
Well, the courts have no impact on ours.
on yours?
No, the only way they would is if somebody challenged us now and said they weren't fair for some reason, then maybe they would, you know, maybe the court could either dismiss it, or I suppose they could intervene and try to correct it. But you know, I think it happens very rarely in counties. You know, I've not heard of it happening in a county out there. I'm not saying it hasn't, but the courts, I don't expect the
Okay,
courts to
then
be
I should
involved.
back up. Did the legislature draw up some lines and then it went through the courts and then it came back down to you?
Well, yeah, they changed the legislative lines, and if you noticed on some of those maps that I passed around earlier, with some of the options, if you notice on some of the maps, the little difference on some was like Maple Lake Township, that little bit carved out of Maple Lake Township, that line was created by the legislature. So that, because part of, a little sliver of Maple Lake Township is in a different legislative district. We were able to use that if we wanted to, but on the map we approved, we just kept Maple Lake Township all in one commissioner district. We didn't have to separate it out to meet the 10%, we thought it made more sense that it stay together, so. That's what we came up with, Larry.
If there's no other question, I would have a quick question on some other.
Okay.
There was stored news rattling around in the papers and such relative to the county government building a high-speed internet system overlaying the county. And I think there's some opposition in the commissioners, within the commissioners, and there's some support for it. There's two of us here that heard about a couple of meetings, we both got put on a task force
Okay.
and spoke in opposition to it. And it appeared like after the last meeting that there probably was going nowhere. And I think there was some rumbling from you in one of the commission meetings, just through the publishing of the minutes. I think you had some doubts. Can you give us any kind of a status?
Sure. Larry's asking about, we've had some, I think it's kind of, the process probably started from maybe a couple other communities that feel as though they're lacking high-speed internet or those sort of capabilities. And as often is the case, when a city wants something and they don't have money for it, they look over to the courthouse in Buffalo and they come on over and they suggest that, this would be great for the whole county, and rather than us cities pay for it, why don't you pay for it and, do it for us? So that's kind of, I think, how it got started with a couple communities wanting it, and our IT person, our IT director, and he's a very good IT director, does a great job for the county. He had kind of gotten this input, and he said, well, we'll convene a meeting and we'll get players involved and we'll talk about it. I know early on, one of my key things I said right off the bat, I said, if we're going to have a meeting, you got to get the private industry in there too, because I live in the city of Monticello and we got a problem right now. Many of you probably know, but Monticello created fiber, and quite frankly, they got a pretty good product out there and it's pretty competitive. But guess what? There's two other competitors too, and everybody's lowering their prices now, and nobody's making any money, and that includes the city. So, it's not that a government can't do fiber, but do they need to do fiber? Or is there somebody out there that can do it already? So, it remains to be seen what's in Monticello, what happens in Monticello. But like I said, Monticello's got fiber in the ground, and they've actually got maybe 40% of the people in town hooked up to it, and they got a viable product. But they're still losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you can do something and still lose a lot of money. And I think everybody in this room knows that. I don't need to tell everybody in this room, but. So, one of my concerns were early on, if you're going to do this, I want the private industry in that room too, because I want it to be a private solution with private industry and not a Wright County solution. So we had a meeting, and the meeting was kind of, there was information gathered, and at the end it was kind of, nothing really happened. I think it's kind of one of those meetings where there's probably differences of opinion in the room, and nobody really wants to throw anything out there too wild, especially if you're a county staff person and your bosses are in there and they probably ain't going to agree with what you're saying. So, nothing really happened there, but a few weeks later, it came back to the board, and there was this thought, well, how about if we put a committee together? And Mr. McGregor, I think his name is on that committee, and Larry as well. I'm not sure what Mr. McGregor's background is, but I'm sure he'll do well. But Mr. Hans, of course, has some underground cable experience. So, but at any rate, so there, and I don't think you guys have met yet as a committee, have you?
Yeah.
Oh, you did meet as a committee. So okay, I don't know what you decided there in that committee, but I don't know what happened. But at any rate, so we put a committee together, and I can only tell you how I feel, and I do know that at least some other members of the board, I think, agree with me on this. But I'm okay if this is all about finding a way to get the different private governments, or private businesses in the county that are doing this together Because we do have a role as a county from the standpoint that, I mean, these things are in our right of way, and sometimes you need permits, you know, different things. So I think, I mean, it's arguable that we have some involvement to maybe help get this thing together. So if somebody out in Annandale thinks that they can't get high speed, if it's a matter of finding a provider in the county that's willing to put it there and agreeing that, hey, you can run it through our county road right away or something like that, you know, maybe it's good that we're at the table. But so at any rate, just wait. At any rate, we agreed to have a committee, and you know, and a couple of the folks in this room are on that committee. And I know one of the parameters that I indicated that need to be in place here right now, so the committee understands this up front, is that the county is not going to be subsidizing a fiber program, and you know, a fiber program around the county. So, and that was. And that was approved by the board, so we established a committee with those parameters. And I don't know if you guys, if that ever came up in the meeting or not, that, hey, if that was directed to the board members right off the bat, was it directed to the players?
It came up at the end.
Okay.
At the end.
So that, and you guys have met, and I guess I haven't heard what you've met on, and I guess we'll wait and see what comes back, like I say, but I think there's a lot of, I know from my standpoint, you know, I've got 3 providers to my door in Monticello. I certainly don't need a 4th. And as I mentioned at the meeting, I thought it was kind of ironic about high speed, because I got fiber at the courthouse, and over at my house at the time when I said that, I had a copper telephone line, and I had the exact same speed with the fiber as I did with the telephone line, so what's all the excitement about? But at any rate, that's where that's at, and you're on the committee, so you maybe know more up to date than I do, but I'm not going to support the county laying fiber all over the place because somebody that lives 14 miles from town doesn't have high enough internet. I mean, you know, sometimes you make your choices based on what you do in life. You know, we've got people that, I mean, I've had people tell me before, you know, my 85-year-old mom, you know, lives 14 miles from town, and, you know, she can't get to the senior center. Can you know, did the county have a bus to go out there and get her? Well, if she wants to go to the senior center, either you got to give her a ride or she got to move to town. You know, there's a bus in Monticello, there's a bus in Buffalo, but these things, you know, government can provide services, and we do it, and sometimes we'll even argue, I mean, some people maybe argue, should there be a bus in Buffalo or not? I don't know, but I know one thing, it sure as hell shouldn't be driving 14 miles out of town and 14 miles back in when you could have picked up 15 people in the time you went to get one and bring them back. So sometimes you got to make decisions, you know, if you want to participate in the programs that are maybe there or what have you. So, but that's my position on it. Dan?
It's run its course, but I just, in your support, Pat, I just wanted to, as you hit on an analogy with your right-of-way and permitting, and that government has a role, I was just going to add the analogy of a football game, and as government being making sure all players play by the rules, and the government forms like as the referee, and they bring the teams together to play an equal game and play by the rules. You know, putting fiber in the ground, in this case of like the city of Monticello, they got it going, and TDS is there now competing with Charter. But I really feel like the referee should not play in the game. They should not be the ones running out for the pass, or they shouldn't be participating in the game. So I think that there is a role for government maybe to, like you said, bring the private sector together, get them on the same wavelength, but then back away and let them play the game. You know,
and we're a role as a consumer. I mean, we've got a government center, and we need services there. Now, we've already got them. We don't need more there. But I mean, so from that standpoint, we're also, you know, we're interested in having these data availabilities too, because, you know, we've got lots of people doing work over there, and it's better for them to have good service than slow service. But you know, so is good fast internet important to Wright County? Yes. Is it important enough that we should be getting in the business? No. But if we can facilitate something a little better without us facilitating